Adapted from archaic translation by W. H. D. Rouse. Jataka number 256. Jarudapana Jataka. Some merchants, etc. This story the master told while living at Jetavana monastery, about some traders whose home was at Shravasti city. The tradition is that these men had acquired wares in Shravasti city, which they loaded on carts. When the time came for them to set about their business, they gave an invitation to the Lord Buddha, and offered him rich alms. They received the refuges, were strengthened in the rules, and took their leave of the master with these words, "Sir, we are going a long way. When we have parted with our wares, if we are fortunate and return in safety, we will come and wait upon you again." Then they set off on their journey. In a difficult part of their road, they observed a disused well. There was no water in it that they could see, and they were thirsty. So they resolved to dig deeper. As they dug, they came upon successive layers of minerals of all sorts, from iron to lapis lazuli. This find contented them. They filled their wagons with these treasures, and got back safe to Shravasti city. They had hidden away the treasure which they had brought, and then thought that having been so lucky they would give food to the brotherhood. So they invited the Lord Buddha, and made him presents. And when they had respectfully greeted him, and sat down on one side, they described how they had found their treasure. Said he, "You, good layman, are content with your find, and accept your wealth and your livelihood with all moderation. But in other days, there were men not content, lacking self-control, who refused to do as wise men advised them, and so lost their life." And he told at their request an old world tale. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was reigning in Benares, the Bodhisattva was born into the family of a businessman, and grew up to be a great merchant. At one time he had filled his wagons with goods, and in company with a large caravan, he came to this very same wood and saw this very same well. No sooner had the traders seen it, than they wanted to drink, and began to dig, and as they dug they came upon a quantity of metal and gems. But though they got a great deal of treasure, they were discontented. There must be another treasure here, better than this, they thought, and they dug and dug. Then said the Bodhisattva to them, "Merchants, greed is the root of destruction. You have won a great deal of wealth. With this be you content, and dig no more." But they digged yet the more notwithstanding. Now this well was haunted by serpents. The serpent king, incensed at the falling of lumps and earth, killed them with the breath of his nostrils, all saving the Bodhisattva, and destroyed them. And he came up from the serpent world, and put the oxen to the carts, filled them with jewels, and seating the Bodhisattva upon a fine wagon, he made certain young serpents drive the carts, and brought him to Benares. He led him into his house, set the treasure in order, and went away again to his own place in the serpent land. And the Bodhisattva spent his treasure, so that he made much stir throughout all India by his almsgiving, and, having undertaken the deeds of virtue, and kept the holy day, at the end of his life he came to paradise. The master, after telling this tale, in his perfect wisdom, uttered the following lines. Some merchants, wanting water, dug the ground in an old well, and there a treasure found. Tin, iron, copper, lead, silver and gold, beryls and pearls and jewels many times. But not content, still more they did desire, and fiery serpents killed them all with fire. Dig if you will, but dig not to excess. For too much digging is a wickedness. Digging gave a treasure to these men, but too much digging lost it all again. When the master had finished this discourse, he identified the birth. At that time, Saraputra was the serpent king, and the master of the caravan was I myself. Source: adapted from archaic translation by Rhys. Jataka number 257. Gamani Chanda Jataka. It is not a clever builder, etc. This story the master told while staying at Jetavana monastery, about the praise of wisdom. In the hall of truth sat the brethren, praising the wisdom of the Buddha. The Lord Buddha has wisdom great and wide, wisdom witty and quick, wisdom sharp and penetrating. He excels this world and the world of gods in wisdom. The master entered, and asked what they were talking of now as they sat there. They told him. He answered, "This is not the first time, brethren, that the Lord Buddha has been wise. He was the same before." And he told an old world tale. Once upon a time, brethren, when Janasandha was reigning in Benares, the Bodhisattva came to life as the son of his chief queen. His face was brilliant, wearing a look of auspicious beauty, like a golden mirror well polished. On the day of his naming they called him Adasa Mukha, Prince Mirror Face. Within the space of 7 years his father caused him to be taught the 3 Vedas, and all the duties of this world. And then he died, when the boy was 7 years old. The courtiers performed the king's funeral rites with great pomp, and made the offerings for the dead. And on the 7th day they gathered together in the palace court, and talked together. The prince was very young, they thought, and he could not be made king. Before they made him king, they would test him. So they prepared a court of justice, and set a divan. Then they came into the prince's presence, and said they, "You must come, my lord, to the law court." To this the prince agreed. And with a great company he went there, and sat upon the dais. Now at the time when the king sat down for judgment, the courtiers had dressed up a monkey, in the garb of a man who is skilled in the tradition which tells what are good sites for a building. They made him go upon 2 feet, and brought him into the judgment hall. "My lord," said they, "in the time of the king your father this man was one who predicted by magic as to desirable sites, and well did he know his art. Down in the earth as deep as 7 arm lengths he can see a fault. By his help there was a place chosen for the king's house. Let the king provide for him, and give him a post." The prince scanned him from head to foot. "This is no man, but a monkey," he thought. And monkeys can destroy what others have made, but of themselves can neither make anything nor carry out such a thing. And so he repeated the first stanza to his court. "It is not a clever builder, but an ape with a wrinkled face. He can destroy what others make. That is the way of his race. It must be so, my lord," said the courtiers, and took him away. But after a day or 2 they dressed this same creature in grand clothes, and brought him again to the judgment hall. "In the king your father's time, my lord, this was a judge who dealt justice. Him should you take to help you in the awarding of justice." The prince looked at him. Thought he, "A man with mind and reason is not so hairy as all that. This witless ape cannot provide justice." And he repeated the second stanza. "There's no wit in this hairy creature. He breeds no confidence. He knows nothing, as my father taught. The animal has no sense. So it must be, my lord," said the courtiers, and led him away. Yet once again did they dress up the very same monkey, and bring him to the hall of judgment. "Sire," said they, "in the time of the king your father this man did his duty to father and mother, and paid respect to old age in his family. Him you should keep with you." Again the prince looked at him, and thought, "Monkeys are weak of mind. Such a thing they cannot do." And then he repeated the third stanza. "One thing Dasaratha has taught me. No help such a creature would send to father or mother, to sister or brother, or any who call him friend. So must it be, my lord, answered they, and took him away again. And they said amongst themselves, It is a wise prince. He will be able to rule. And they made the Bodhisattva king. And throughout the city by beat of drum they made proclamation, saying, The edicts of King Mirror Face. From that time the Bodhisattva reigned righteously. And his wisdom was noised abroad throughout all India. To show on the matter of this wisdom of his, these 14 problems were brought to him to decide. An ox, a boy, a horse, a basket knight, a official, a light o' love, and a young lady, a snake, a deer, a partridge bird, and a fairy, a snake, ascetics, a young priest I name. This happened as we shall now explain. When the Bodhisattva was inaugurated king, a certain servant of King Janasandha, named Gamani Chanda, thus considered within himself. This kingdom is glorious if it be governed by aid of those who are of an age with the king. Now I am old, and I cannot wait upon a young prince. So I will get me a living by farming in the country. So he departed from the city a distance of 3 leagues, and dwelling in a certain village. But he had no oxen for farming. And so, after rain had fallen, he begged the loan of 2 oxen from a friend. All day long he plowed with them, and then he gave them grass to eat, and went to the owner's house to give them back again. At the moment it happened that the owner sat at meat with his wife. And the oxen entered the house, quite at home. As they entered, the master was raising his plate, and the wife putting hers down. Seeing that they did not invite him to share the meal, Gamani Chanda departed without formally making over the oxen. During the night, thieves broke into the cow pen, and stole the oxen away. Early on the next day, the owner of these oxen entered the cowshed, but cattle there were none. He perceived that they had been stolen away by thieves. I'll make Gamani pay for it, thought he, and to Gamani he went. I say, return me my oxen, cried he. Are not they in their stall? Now did you return 'em to Met? No, I didn't. Here's the king's officer. Come along. Now this people have a custom that they pick up a bit of stone or a broken pottery, and say, here's the king's officer. Come along. If any man refuses to go, he is punished. So when Gamani heard the word officer, he went along. So they went together towards the king's court. On the way, they came to a village where lived a friend of Gamani's. Said he to the other, I say, I'm very hungry. Wait here till I go in and get me something to eat. And he entered his friend's house. But his friend was not at home. The wife said, Sir, there is nothing cooked. Wait but a moment. I will cook at once and set before you. She climbed a ladder to the grain store, and in her haste she fell to the ground. And as she was 7 months gone with child, a miscarriage followed. At that moment, in came the husband, and saw what had happened. You have struck my wife, cried he, and brought her labor upon her untimely. Here's a king's officer for you, come along. And he carried him off. After this they went on, the 2 of them, with Gamani between. As they went, there was a horse at a village gate. And the groom could not stop it, but it ran along with them. The horsekeeper called out to Gamani, Uncle Chanda. Gamani, hit the horse with something, and head him back. Gayad picked up a stone, and threw it at the horse. The stone struck his foot, and broke it like the stalk of a castor oil plant. Then the man cried, Oh, you've broken my horse's leg. Here's a king's officer for you. And he laid hold of him. Gamani was thus 3 men's prisoner. As they led him along, he thought, These people will denounce me to the king. I can't pay for the oxen, much less the fine for causing an untimely birth. And then where shall I get the price of the horse? I were better dead. So, as they went along, he saw a wood hard by the road, and in it a hill with a precipice on one side of it. In the shadow of it were two basket makers, father and son, weaving a mat. Said Gamani, I say, I want to retire for a moment. Wait here, while I go aside. And with these words he climbed the hill, and threw himself down the precipice. He fell upon the back of the elder basket maker, and killed him on the spot. Gamani got up, and stood still. Ah, you villain! You've murdered my father! Cried the younger basket maker. Here's the king's officer. He seized Gamani's hands, and came out of the thick vegetation. What's this? Asked the others. The villain has murdered my father. So on they went, the four of them, with Gamani in the middle. They came to the gate of another village. The headman was there, who hailed Gamani. Uncle Chanda, where you go? To see the king, says Gamani. Oh indeed, to see the king. I want to send him a message. Will you take it? Yes, that I will. Well, I am usually handsome, rich, honored, and healthy. But now I am miserable and have the jaundice too. Ask the king why this is. He is a wise man, so they say. He will tell you, and you can bring me his message again. To this the other agreed. At another village a light o' love called out to him, Where bound? Uncle Chanda to see the king, says he. They say the king is a wise man. Take him a message from me, says the woman. Formerly I used to make great gains. Now I don't get the worth of a betel nut, and nobody courts me. Ask the king how this may be, and then you can tell me. At a third village, there was a young woman who told Gamani, I can live neither with my husband nor with my own family. Ask the king how this is, and then tell me. A little further on there was a snake living in an ant hill near the road. He saw Gamani, and called out, Where you go, Chanda? To see the king. The king is wise. Take him a message from me. When I go out to get my food, I leave this ant hill faint and famishing, and yet I fill the entrance hole with my body, and I get out with difficulty, dragging myself along. But when I come in again, I feel satisfied, and fat, yet I pass quickly through the hole without touching the sides. How is this? Ask the king, and bring me his answer. And further on a deer saw him, and said, I can't eat grass anywhere but underneath this tree. Ask the king the reason. And again a partridge bird said, When I sit at the foot of this ant heap, and utter my note, I can make it prettily. But nowhere else. Ask the king why. And again, a tree spirit saw him, and said, Where you go, Chanda? To the king. The king's a wise man, they say. In former times I was highly honored. Now I don't receive so much as a handful of twigs. Ask the king what the reason is. And further on again he was seen by a serpent king, who spoke to him thus. The king is said to be a wise man. Then ask him this question. In past the water in this pool has been clear as crystal. Why is it that now it has become turbid, with scum all over it? Further on, not far from a town, certain ascetics who lived in a park saw him, and said, In the same way, they say the king is wise. Of past there were in this park sweet fruits in plenty, now they have grown tasteless and dry. Ask him what the reason is. Further on again, he was approached by some Brahmin students who were in a hall at the gate of a town. They said to him, Where are you going, Chanda, eh? To the king, says Chanda. Then take a message for us. Till now, whatever passage we learnt was bright and clear. Now it does not stay with us. It is not understood, but all is darkness. It is like water in a leaky jar. Ask the king what the reason is. Gamani Chanda came before the king with his 14 questions. When the king saw him, he recognized him. This is my father's servant, who used to dandle me in his arms. Where has he been living all this time? And Chanda, said he, where have you been living all this time? We have seen nothing of you for a long while. What brings you here? Oh, my lord, when my lord the late king went to heaven, I departed into the country and kept myself by farming. Then this man summoned me for a suit regarding his cattle, and here he has brought me. If you had not been brought here, you had never come. But I'm glad that you were brought anyhow. Now I can see you. Where is that man? Here, my lord. It is you that summoned our friend Chanda. Yes, my lord. Why? He refuses to give back my pair of oxen. Is this so, Chanda? Hear my story too, my lord, said Chanda, and told him the whole. When he had heard the tale, the king spoke to the owner of the oxen. Did you see the oxen? Said he, entering the stall. No, my lord, the man replied. Why, man, did you never hear my name? They call me King Mirror Face. Speak out honestly. I saw them, my lord, said he. Now, Chanda, said the king, you failed to return the oxen, and therefore you are his debtor for them. But this man, in saying that he had not seen him, told a direct lie. Therefore you with your own hands shall pick his eyes out, and you shall yourself pay him 24 pieces of money as the price of the oxen. Then they led the owner of the oxen out of doors. If I lose my eyes, what do I care for the money? Thought he. And he fell at Gamani's feet, and pleaded him, O Master Chanda, keep those 24 pieces, and take these too. And he gave him other pieces, and ran away. The second man said, My lord, this fellow struck my wife, and made her miscarry. Is this true, Chanda? Asked the king. Chanda begged for a hearing, and told the whole story. Did you really strike her, and cause her to miscarry? Asked the king. No, my lord. I did no such thing. Now, can you, to the other, can you heal the miscarriage which he has caused? No, my lord, I cannot. Now, what do you want to do? I should have a son, my lord. Now then, Chanda, you take the man's wife to your house. And when a son shall be born to you, hand him over to the husband. Then this man also fell at Chanda's feet, crying, Don't break up my home, master. Throw down some money, and made off. The third man then accused Chanda of lamming his horse's foot. Chanda as before told what had happened. Then the king asked the owner, Did you really tell Chanda to strike the horse, and turn him back? No, my lord, I did not. But on being pressed, he admitted that he had said so. This man, said the king, has told a direct lie, in saying that he did not tell you to head back the horse. You may tear out his tongue, and then pay him 1,000 pieces for the horse's price, which I will give you. But the fellow even gave him another sum of money, and departed. Then the basket maker's son said, This fellow is a murderer, and he killed my father. Is it so, Chanda? Asked the icing. Hear me, my lord, said Chanda, and told him about it. Now, what do you want? Asked the king. My lord, I must have my father. Chanda, said the king, this man must have a father. But you cannot bring him back from the dead. Then take his mother to your house, and do you be a father to him. Oh, master, cried the man, don't break up my dead father's home. He gave Gamani a sum of money, and hurried away. Thus Gamani won his suit, and in great delight he said to the king, "My lord, I have several questions for you from several persons. May I tell you them?" "Say on," said the king. So Gamani told them all in reverse order, beginning with the young Brahmins. The king answered them in turn. To the first question, he answered, "In the place where they live, there used to be a crowing cock that knew the time. When they heard his crow, they used to rise up, and repeat their texts, until the sun rose, and thus they did not forget what they learnt. But now there is a cock that crows out of season. He crows at dead of night, or in broad day. When he crows in the depth of night, up they rise, but they are too sleepy to repeat the text. When he crows in broad day, they rise up, but they have not the chance to repeat their texts. Thus it is, that whatever they learn, they soon forget." To the second question, he answered, "Formerly these men used to do all the duties of the ascetic, and they induced the mystic trance. Now they have neglected the ascetic's duties, and they do what they should not do. The fruits which grow in the park they give to their attendants. They live in a sinful way, exchanging their alms. This is why this fruit does not grow sweet. If they once more with one consent do their duty as ascetics, again the fruit will grow sweet for them. Those hermits know not the wisdom of kings. Tell him to live the ascetic life." He heard the third question, and answered, "Those serpent chiefs quarrel one with another, and that is why the water becomes turbid. If they make friends as before, the water will be clear again." After hearing the fourth, the tree spirit, said he, used formerly to protect men passing through the wood, and therefore she received many offerings. Now she gives them no protection, and so she receives no offerings. If she protects them as before, she will receive choice offerings again. She knows not that there are kings in the world. Tell her, then, to guard the men who go up into that wood." And on hearing the fifth, under the ant hill where the partridge bird finds himself able to utter a pleasant cry is a crock of treasure. Dig it up and get it. To the sixth he answered, "On the tree under which the deer found he could eat grass, is a great honeycomb. He craves the grass on which this honey has dropped, and so he can eat no other. You get the honeycomb, send the best of it to me, and eat the rest yourself." Then on hearing the seventh, under the snake's ant heap lies a large treasure crock, and there he lives guarding it. So when he goes out, from greed for this treasure his body sticks fast. But after he has fed, his desire for the treasure prevents his body from sticking, and he goes in quickly and easily. Dig up the treasure, and keep it. Then he replied to the eighth question, "Between the villages where dwell the young woman's husband and her parents lives a lover of hers in a certain house. She remembers him, and her desire is toward him. Therefore she cannot stay in her husband's house, but says she will go and see her parents, and on the way she stays a few days with her lover. When she has been at home a few days, again she remembers him, and saying she will return to her husband, she goes again to her lover. Go, tell her there are kings in the land. Say, she must dwell with her husband, and if she will not, let her have a care. The king will cause her to be seized, and she shall die." He heard the ninth. And to this he said, "The woman used formerly to take a price from the hand of one, and not to go with another until she was off with him, and that is how she used to receive much. Now she has changed her manner, and without leave of the first she goes with the last, so that she receives nothing, and none seek after her. If she keeps to her old custom, it will be as it was before. Tell her that she should keep to that." On hearing the tenth, he replied, That village headman used once to deal justice indifferently, so that men were pleased and delighted with him. And in their delight they gave him many a present. This is what made him handsome, rich, and honored. Now he loves to take bribes, and his judgment is not fair. So he is poor and miserable, and jaundiced. If he judges once again with righteousness, he will be again as he was before. He knows not that there are kings in the land. Tell him that he must use justice in giving judgment. And Gamani Nikàya told all these messages, as they were told to him. And the king, having resolved all these questions by his wisdom, like Buddha infinitely knowledgeable, gave rich presents to Gamani Chanda. And the village where Chanda lived he gave to him, as a Brahman's gift, and let him go. Chanda went out of the city, and told the king's answer to the Brahman youths, and the ascetics, to the serpent and to the tree spirit. He took the treasure from the place where the partridge birds sat, and from the tree beneath which the deer did eat, he took the honeycomb, and sent honey to the king. He broke into the snake's ant hill, and gathered the treasure out of it. And to the young woman, and the light o' love, and the village headman he said even as the king had told him. Then he returned to his own village, and lived there so long as he lived, and afterward passed away to fare according to his deeds. And King Mirror Face also gave alms, and brought goodness, and finally after his death went to the heaven. When the master had ended this discourse, to show that not now only is the Lord Buddha wise, but wise he was before, he explained the truths, and identified the birth. Or the second, or the third, or the fourth. At that time Ananda was Gamani Chanda, but King Mirror Face was I myself.